This chart tracks a grim threshold in recent military estimates. Russian forces have now suffered 1.4 million casualties. Look at the sharp exponential spike in recent months. The sheer volume of men removed from the battlefield is stretching their capacity to the point where the front lines are buckling under their own weight. For the first couple of years of this conflict, the reality of those losses was kept largely out of sight. The state controlled the media, the draft targeted remote provinces, and everyday citizens in major cities were mostly shielded from the human cost of the fighting. But that insulation is rapidly failing. The attrition rate is now so high that the military has to dig deeper into the population. Ordinary citizens are seeing draft notices hit their own neighborhoods, and domestic tension is surging as a result. The scale of the death toll has become impossible to hide. When you look at expanding rows of uniform white headstones, the abstract statistics become an inescapable physical reality. The illusion of a quick, controlled military operation has shattered, leaving behind a domestic crisis that the state cannot contain. The strangest part of this collapse is where it's rooted. The fighting spans a 600-mile front line, yet the entire Russian war machine is buckling because of a single, highly vulnerable location. That location is the Crimean Peninsula. It's an isolated body of land hanging off Ukraine's southern coast. Pull back to the Black Sea, and its choke point role is obvious. Crimea dictates the flow of supplies, armor, and ultimately the failure of Russia's military apparatus. Historically, Moscow has always treated Crimea as an impenetrable fortress. By anchoring large warships in these coastal harbors, they projected deep naval and ground dominance across the region. Today, military experts are looking at that exact same terrain and coming to the exact opposite conclusion. Current assessments suggest Russian troops will soon have no choice but to completely abandon the territory. The problem is the land bridge. To supply their troops by ground, everything has to travel through a single, narrow corridor of occupied territory, connecting Crimea to mainland Russia. All those trucks and trains are squeezed into one highly targetable bottleneck. Ukrainian forces know exactly where this corridor is, and they are systematically applying precision fire to sever these routes. Every road and rail line cuts isolates the troops trapped on the peninsula a little bit more. Without resupply, a fortress is a prison. In a prolonged war of attrition, defending an isolated peninsula becomes geographically impossible. Putin's alternative logistical path, the Kerch Bridge, is systematically being dismantled. With sections of the road collapsed and railway cars burning, the bridge is entirely unviable for heavy military transport. That leaves the military with exactly one option to feed and arm its men: load supplies onto ships and ferry them across the Black Sea. But those sea lanes are no longer safe. Using asymmetric naval tactics, specifically cheap explosive drone boats, Ukrainian forces have relentlessly hunted the Russian Black Sea fleet. The very vessels designed to protect those sea routes have been neutralized. The sinking of high-value flagship assets like the Moskva cleared the waters, forcing the surviving ships to retreat. With the bridge in ruins and the naval fleet crippled, the logistical arteries are dead. The peninsula is effectively starving, rendering those 1.4 million casualties completely in vain. The stakes for this geographic failure extend directly into the Kremlin. Crimea is his ultimate political trophy. His modern legacy is built entirely on capturing it. Inside the country, the narrative is inflexible. The regime's ongoing legitimacy relies on successfully holding this specific piece of land. If the military is forced to abandon the peninsula, there is no propaganda spin powerful enough to hide that defeat from the Russian people. A strategic retreat would be the smart military move, but it is politically suicidal. The leadership is trapped. They are forced to continuously feed men into an unwinnable geographic meat grinder simply to delay the inevitable and save face. It creates a devastating feedback loop. Defending Crimea accelerates casualties, which hollows out the military's ability to defend the territory. At this threshold, losses spill over into domestic survival. Public unrest and elite fracturing become the primary threats as war costs become unbearable. As the pressure mounts and the casualty numbers climb, Putin is actively losing his grip on power inside his own borders. The exhaustion of the military and the isolation of the peninsula are creating a structural pressure that Moscow's political system was never designed to sustain. If this logistical attrition continues, the final resolution of the war will likely be determined by the internal stability of the Russian state itself.